All right, records on.
Okay, let me switch my thing back here.
Mhm.
And oh, okay, is this okay?
Yeah,
Sounds
that's
great.
pretty audible. Yeah.
Okay, right. Okay. So when I graduated the program, I was, I wanted to do an internship, but what I discovered was internship is defined as you have to graduate after this certain date. So as soon as I graduated, that immediately eliminated me from any internships, whatever that meant. And then so I was looking for entry level. Well, how do they spell entry level? And so I looked under. I accidentally discovered they track information security analyst, and then I had junior, stuff like that. And that seemed to be okay. But when I went to look on Monster for, cybersecurity, junior analyst or junior something,
Mhm.
there was like maybe three listings, and or maybe about six listings, and five of those were for uh, what was that place on the west side of on the west side of the peninsula? But they were all for the same company,
Mhm.
um, and so I can't think of what other. How else do I look for entry level? Okay, I have now. Given that I have um, experience in the federal government with putting in a communication system, so I'm not a beginner. I'm not someone, who's just starting, so I have experience with installing and maintaining, communications equipment. But for cybersecurity, definitely I'm a beginner. But so how do I look for what else? What other terms do they use for entry level?
Well, it all comes down to how you would probably write your cover letter and how your resume is going to reflect your experience as well. Because, especially when you're applying for an entry level position, but you have a similar kind of experience, it's all about writing thoroughly why you're looking for an entry level position and what you're looking to get out of that position. So, it all comes down to how you describe yourself in that initial given stage, Donna.
Okay. Well, the technology is they use different technologies. I mean, with radio, you use one set, and then with cybersecurity, you use things like DNS, DHCP,
Mhm.
IP protocol, and completely different. And so I don't mind that they call me entry level. I don't care, But it's like, yeah, I'm looking for it, level one. um, okay, and let me see here. Second question. Let's see here. What do you look for on a resume?
Well, now let's start from a recruiter's standpoint here, right? So when
Okay.
a recruiter has multiple requisitions, he or she wouldn't understand every job, description thoroughly because they do not have hands-on experience in that given field. So what we do when we screen an applicant is match the requirements or the what the basic requirements are going to be against the applicant's experience or in terms of requirements what they have. So what we do is, like, let's say I'm recruiting for an intermediate software developer position, right? So which means that the job description might say we're looking for someone between 3 to 5 years of experience with experience in probably a few database or any given software. So what we're going to do is we're going to match that against your resume and see if you fit in that particular criteria. And if you do, and again, apart from that, it's also the salary expectation as well as the location, and quite a lot of factors are taken into account. And once we see that there's a match to the description what we have, that's when we're going to move ahead with that candidate to the next stage, which could be the potential screening stage.
Well, let me address that, because what I do with the job description in my resume is I take the words out of the job description and I put them in my resume wherever I can. And usually it's pretty easy, because at
Mhm.
my stage they have a list of them. We want one, two, three, four. Then I can put those in my resume. And then what I was told that Boeing does is that they give you a point if you use a keyword, but then they give you 3 points if you use it in a sentence.
Mhm.
So I assume that that's fair. So do you look for anything else that's special besides keywords?
Well, keywords is one of the key things because when a recruiter sits down to let's say Cindy is the actual hiring manager for a position, right? So what we do when there's a certain requirement, a recruiter sits down with the hiring manager and figures out what are the key key skills what Cindy is looking for that given position. So those essentially are the keywords. But apart from that, Cindy also outlines what the requirement should be for that particular position. So those are again one of the few criterias what we base our search on. So pretty much if your resume reflects the same, that's when it's going to be a match, and that's when a recruiter is going to reach out to you for your next stage. Could be an assessment or could be a telephonic interview or whatever it could be.
Well,
Okay.
let me ask you about that. So your relationship with the hiring manager, do
Mhm.
you actually like sit down and have a meeting with that person, or do they just like hand you some sort of document and say this is who I want?
I mean, primarily, most of the organizations, the way it works is the recruiter sits with the hiring manager, discusses a bit about hiring strategy. So when I say hiring strategy, what platforms do they want the job to be advertised on? They would like to, discuss in detail about the job description itself in terms of what the core competencies are. And the overall requirements of the position. So once they've come up with a strategy together, that's when the recruiter is gonna go ahead and advertise the job because they're primarily the ambassadors of the organization within human resources. So that's how I think the initial stage is executed, which is collaboratively done between the hiring manager and the human resources team.
I see. Okay, very
Yeah.
good. Very
Hmm.
cool.
Okay, and let's see here. A question that I was working with, or Cindy was working with me.
Hmm.
I know that hiring managers and recruiters like to see numbers, like increase this by 50%, decrease that by 25%. But sometimes you'll get an accomplishment which you really can't put in numbers, especially in government. And so, how do you, as much as I want to put the numbers in, what happens if you can't find numbers for an accomplishment? How else can I make it stand out?
Well, in terms of resume writing, I believe
Right.
if that's your question, probably Cindy should be the best person to give you some advice on that.
Yeah,
Okay. We,
so
we had a long discussion about that.
Hmm.
um so if you can't put numbers, then you have to think about like your the accomplishments at a larger scale and think about the the number of people that it's affected, or the community that's affected right now. So the example that I gave Donald yesterday was that I was involved in a in a 18-month or like 14 to 18-month project for a for Lockheed Martin for like a big time communication satellite project.
Hmm.
And certainly there wasn't a whole lot of numbers that I could use because the numbers were considered company proprietary.
Hmm.
But what I since find out is that 2 years after I left the company, my former mentor told me that the procedure that I created, that I designed, has now become the industry standard. So can you tell me, like, is that not an accomplishment? Now it has become a standard for the industry. So now it's become like all these people who are involved in the industry
Hmm.
being affected from the work that I did. And
Hmm.
so that is an accomplishment. Right. So the thing about like at a larger scale, in a way, even if you don't know like the number of people
Hmm.
um like in the community is, but it's like, does your work affect the company overall, the industry overall, the neighborhood, the nation, worldwide, um, kind of thing.
Well,
Um,
one thing that I'd like to break in here is that how would you attract the recruiter's attention? Because the recruiter is looking for numbers, and so you have this really big accomplishment. Like your work, the work that you did is now an industry standard. How would you be able? How would you attract the recruiter's attention to that?
you could put it at the very top. This is the first bullet point. That's one way. Um, keywords is another way, I suppose.
Well,
Ken Keith.
as Cindy mentioned, like I guess summary, when you summarize yourself or your overall experience or your accomplishments, I think that's where you got to catch a recruiter's eye. Those first
Yeah.
few bullet points or the first few paragraphs, what you write about yourself has to address, or it has to be tailored as per the job description goes. Again, one key thing, what we all need to keep in mind is when a respective requisition is open, as a recruiter, we tend to go through hundreds of resumes, right? So which
Mm,
means we typically spend about maybe 25 to 50 seconds. We just give it a glance. And because
yeah.
we know the description and we know what the keywords we want to look into, like let's say if I'm looking for someone with SQL server based experience, then I'm going to look for those keywords in the resume, and I don't find that, probably I may not dig deep into it, right? So
Yeah.
it's so we wouldn't spend time reading every bit of information on the resume. So it's good to categorize
Right.
everything and make a good summary if that's possible.
So for no, yeah, it's like summary, right? So along of those lines, the thing that I recommend doing is that in that summary section is to actually put a lot of keywords up there, kind of thing. And also, but don't overwhelm the reader with too many words at the same time. So there needs to be a lot of white space, but then there's also a lot of keywords. Once you have catch the reader's attention, once you get the reader to say, this person looks interesting, I want to know more. Once you got them curious about you, then you can afford to write more words, and then they will be more willing to read it, even if there are not a whole lot of numbers. Think about it. A resume is supposed to be 2 pages, right? And yet there are more people who wants to read an 8-page Harry Potter novel than a 2-page resume.
I never thought of
Why
that.
is that? Why do people want to read 800 pages versus 2 pages? And that's because Harry Potter, other novels, able to catch the reader's attention within the first chapter,
Hmm.
right? And you want to be able to do that in a resume, because
Well, yeah, right, right.
after the recruiter takes that 5-10 seconds reading it, they're like, I want to know more about this person. Then they want to go to the second page and read more. What do you think, Stan Keith?
No, that's absolutely right. So when, as you rightly said, the basic is if someone catches my eye, yes, I want to dig deep and read more about the experience in detail or the accomplishments in detail. But it's all about putting yourself out there. So one of the other tips what I generally give to most of the candidates is an elevator pitch, right? So pretty much
Mm-hmm.
write what you're gonna speak, right? Like let's say you when a recruiter contacts you, that 30 seconds, again, when you open the conversation with them, you're gonna sell yourself in that 30 seconds. So that pretty much should go on your resume as your summary as well, pretty much tied to the job description.
Yeah, that's yeah.
And let me see here. Oh, we lost one person. Okay, most recruiters
So
are.
I wanna pause you for a minute, Donald. I because Jonathan has come on here.
Okay.
Hey, Jonathan,
Hey, Cindy.
how are you?
Sorry. I'm good. How are
No,
you?
no worries. So we kind of already started. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay, so I'm at Cindy working Whole Foods. Um, my last job was with Power BI, customer support, and doing data analysis. So that's what I'm currently looking to do. But I'm in between jobs right now. I was working for Mindtree as a contractor for the Power BI team.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Thanks,
Good to meet you,
Jonathan.
Jonathan.
For coming.
Yep.
Very cool.
Glad to be here.
So, so Donnie, have more questions,
Certainly
or
do.
we could pass on to other people too.
I know.
So I guess we could take some turns too. So, Garcia, yeah, do you have a question?
I do. Either one of you, can you touch on LinkedIn a little bit, especially if you're in the middle of a career transition? Do you erase everything you already had and start over, or do you add on to it? And then also, how do you curate that differently from your resume?
Do you want to speak to that, Sanketh?
Well, yeah, thank you. Teresa, it's a great question. Especially when someone's in, in a phase of career change, I think what one needs to advertise or, speak more about is the transferable skill sets, what they're going to bring in from, the previous jobs, if that's possible, because that's how we could attract most employers as well, even though you're getting into a new aspect within your career. So yeah, I feel that highlighting a bit on those transferable skill sets and tying it again to the description of the job that you're applying for would be a great way to get into that particular rec student's mind, or even that particular organization you're interested in.
Yeah. And my input in terms of the difference between resume and LinkedIn, there are certainly a number of theories out there about how to do a LinkedIn profile, and certainly there are a number of methods to do a resume as well. My opinion on the subject is that the experience section of your LinkedIn profile can be the same as what you have on your resume, on your master resume, not a tailored, but not a tailored resume specific to a job, but one that's on a master resume. Now, what's going to be different is the summary section. For the resume, you want to keep your summary short because you have a limited amount of space, a limited amount of pages to use. On LinkedIn, you have a little bit more freedom in a way, but you also at the same time don't want to write like a 500-word summary, if you will, because if someone doesn't have the time to read a resume, do you think they have the time to read that much stuff on a LinkedIn profile at the same time? But a LinkedIn profile, it does allow you to provide more information than what a resume summary would need. And then, certainly with LinkedIn, there's a bunch of networking features you could do. You could post articles and put postings. Put in some of the groups or interests that you like. As far as if you needed to start over with it, I don't necessarily think you have to start over with it. It's just like Sanketh says, that you want to find out what your transferable skills are. So what I would recommend that you do is actually find out, go to like Indeed.com or go to LinkedIn jobs postings or Google job posting or wherever you find job postings. Get the 4 to 5 job descriptions of positions that you actually feel like they were your ideal future positions. This is like your future ideal role that you really want to get into. Look at those 5 descriptions and then find out what the commonalities are among all those descriptions, because that basically tells you what the general skills are needed for that role. And then you want to figure out okay, now you know what that role really involves and what these companies want from that role, is to look into yourself and look into your past career and ask yourself, how do my past experiences matches up with what that your future role wants? Those are the things that I would put on my resume and on my LinkedIn profile, because that's where you can take the experience that you had before and connect it for people to make the connection for the recruiter and the hiring manager to tell you, I may not be an expert in this role, but I do have the experience, and I do have the ability to learn and transfer to that new role. That makes sense?
Yes, it does.
Does that help at all?
Yeah, it's really helpful. Thank you. Should you put your master resume on LinkedIn or not?
I would put a master. But that also depends on, I don't know what your master resume looks like. And so, I don't know. Sanketha, I would say you put your master because you don't have a job description to tailor it specifically to a company. So what I consider a master resume is that these are your top accomplishments that you feel like you are most proud of, that you most want to market, and those are the things that are on a master resume. It's not, your master resume should not be everything that you've ever done.
Okay.
Yeah, so a master
clarifies it.
resume is your top 4 accomplishments in each of the roles that you had. I think. So Keith, you seem like you have a.
No, what I wanted to add to Cindy mentioned, coming from a recruiter's standpoint, when we actually receive a resume in hand, what we typically tend to do is follow the applicant on different social media. Like, depends on what profession they're in, but LinkedIn is one common professional based platform, right? So what we are more interested in, what groups are you a part of? So what activities, how active have you been on the platform, and what are some of the common things what you've shared on your platform? Because at the end of the day, when a recruiter connects with you over a phone call, they tend to do a bit of background research about, let's say, Theresia and what she has been following most recently, and what kind of conversation she's been engaging in recently on her LinkedIn platform, so that we could connect with you and probably expand on that. So, or if if you're an IT person, you might be active on GitHub or excuse me, Stack Overflow, any of that. So what we tend to do there again is see what platforms and how active are you on that given subject, and how you're trying to expand yourself. So primarily that's what we use the social media bench for, to just get an understanding, a bit more detailed information about the applicant.
Okay, thank you.
How about?
Thank you.
That's really helpful. Yes.
All right, no problem. Jonathan, you have a question?
I've been trying to think of some. We've gone over a lot, and I'm trying to kind of expand on that. I've been doing a lot of LinkedIn job posts, so I think I might have a question about that. And
Okay.
I've been doing the easy apply just because I'm trying to get like a big number of job posts instead of maybe getting more quality. Maybe Sanketh, you can talk about kind of the balance of that, and kind of how that easy apply maybe works, or what you see when you get those applications through LinkedIn.
Well,
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment there, Jonathan. That's the first time. Now that you mentioned, that's the first time that quantity is better than quality, because I've seen a lot of postings on LinkedIn, and it's cute, but they're totally worthless. But I think that people put them on there just to raise their score.
Okay.
Okay. Well, Jonathan, in terms of LinkedIn, again, it depends on what kind of account you have. Let's say, example, you have a basic account, you apply for a job, you do not know how many competitors are there for that given job. Whereas when you have a premium account, what tends to happen is when you apply for a given
You
job,
do.
it gives you a bit more detailed insight. Let's say it might say there's about 60 applicants or hundreds of applicants. So which means that you know that there's a bit more, of a competition for that given role. Then you could probably take alternative routes as well to to outsmart the competition. Could be, connect with a recruiter, have an informational interview if that's possible, or write a cover letter in a much more appealing way. But yeah, but again, LinkedIn is that one given platform which everyone tends to use. But again, what I would say, if I'm an applicant, I want to outstand, and how could I do that? It's coming up with different ways to connect with the recruiter. So for me, at least personally, when I myself was applying for a job, what worked out good for me is connecting directly with the recruiter. At times, you might not get a response from them, but never to be heartbroken. It's just about reaching out to them, trying to see if you could get about half an hour worth of informational interview so that you could understand a bit more about the job itself and express your interest in that position. So yeah, I think those are other alternative routes which one can take to, probably sell themselves to the best.
Cool. Yeah, I do have the premium, and it has some good insights. And I like how
Yeah.
sometimes it tells you what
Mhm.
their projection is of, you're in top 25% or whatever.
Absolutely. So at times, yeah.
One question I have is how some coaching on reaching out to recruiters that are listed with the premium feature, kind of
Mhm.
what works, kind of.
Well, it depends on the scale of the organization. At times, what LinkedIn says is this is the person who has posted the job, right? So it just says the job poster is so and so. So that doesn't mean he or she is the recruiter. At times, the hiring manager themselves posts the job. So, or it could be someone else who's totally not relevant and who's not going to be included in the recruitment process might post the job. So digging deep into the organization itself, finding out who the hiring manager for that given particular job is or who the recruiter is. Yeah, so I think it's all about doing a bit more of extra research and probably, reaching out to them through in-mail option what Premium gives you, or if not, never be hesitant to pick up a phone and, call the organization and say, hey, you know what, I'm interested in working for you. Can I get a contact number for the recruiter or so and so hiring manager? And yeah, I
Okay.
think those are some extra steps which could help you, Jonathan.
Yeah,
Thank
because
you.
was it about a month ago that we were talking about cold emailing,
Mm-hmm.
cold emailing recruiters and hiring managers, and I was kind of skeptical about that method, but
Mm-hmm.
it sounded, you said it was okay.
It is totally okay. See, at the end of the day, when Jonathan reaches out to me and outstands from the rest of the people who applied through a normal way, right, but have just submitted their resume and cover letter, what a recruiter might feel as Jonathan is taking that extra step to show his passion towards the job or why he wants to work for a company. So that's what catches recruiters' attention again, right? So, but again, it also comes down to every given recruiter. At times, a recruiter might be working on 40 different openings for their company, so they might not even have the chance to personally, acknowledge your, way of or your email or anything as such. So again, just don't be disheartened if you do not get a reply. There's no harm in following up. Again, as professionals, people are at times obligated to reply back when you constantly follow up with them, and that shows your interest as well. So never give up when you don't get a response in the first stage. Please do follow up. At times recruiters do reply back to you probably in your second or third email, but that goes along with the patience, and yeah, at times it's fruitful. Yeah.
Now, how long should someone wait to follow up?
I would say at least two. Send out two emails, in parallelly while you're searching for other positions, just not waiting on that one particular position. So at least one or two emails, and if you do not get a reply from there, I think it's time to move on.
But should the person wait a week to send that second or third email, or the next day, or so?
Typically, I would say give it at least 3 to 5 business days. So, if you send it on Monday, wait up until the end of the week probably, and send out one probably on a Friday, just as an example. So give them some room so that you're also not showcasing yourself as needy. But again, you're just following up based on not receiving a response, and you've waited for a good amount of days as well. Right? So,
Well, that's a really important thing there is following up. So could you please, I don't want to say repeat it again, but it's
mhm.
how would you ask the recruiter, for their the or somebody for the recruiters? Do you ask them for their email and then have a conversation with them by phone, or what would you do?
Well, there's so many different options, Donald. You could reach out to them through, through a phone call. Always, a phone call is better because you could exchange conversation, even though it could be limited. At least you get a chance to speak to them. If that doesn't work out, the second step is an email, which again might take a bit of. Depending on how busy the recruiter is, it might take a bit of time for them to get back to you through an email. But again, there's different ways. There's phone, there's email, there's LinkedIn in mail option as well. So yeah, I think these are 3 different mediums what you could use to reach out to that particular hiring professional there.
Very cool.
Okay, thank you. I probably have heard it someplace before, but it's something that I need to. I don't. Something I need to do more of, and it's. I wouldn't call it cold emailing. It's just
Mm.
um, you're interested in the company, and so you would keep on asking the recruiter or the hiring manager or whoever you got, and then I would guess after you've hit
Mhm.
them with 2 or 3 emails and they don't respond, okay, next.
Yeah. That's it. That's absolutely right. You just got to move on. And at the end of the day, the recruiter must feel that the person is following up based on the interest and not harassing them in terms of, getting a response, right? So, yeah, just give that room between emails. And if you do not hear back from them, time to move on. If you do hear back, that's a good news. And it's good to build from there.
Very cool.
So I have one more reason to use LinkedIn, and I only say that because LinkedIn has been really marginal. It's been very I think it's been overhyped, but I was trying to figure out how else do I use this thing. So I guess that's one more way to use LinkedIn.
Yes, it is.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Okay.
And this for each of you,
Yeah.
Cindy and Sanketh. Could you reverse engineer for me what process you would follow if you were applying for a job?
Re-engineer.
And I say reverse engineer, especially for Sanketh, considering you are a recruiter. So if you were in the job search chair, what
Mhm.
would you do from beginning to end, let's say?
Okay. If I'm applying for a job, you asked me what are the different steps I would do, right?
Yes, so you're in the job market and
Mhm.
you're just starting over. What would you do?
Well, again, first thing first is I need to know what kind of openings are coming up. So, which means I'm gonna, look through the careers page of that given organization I'm interested in, or else use different platforms like LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor to look up the respective openings I'm interested in. And once I've seen something which is compatible with my interest, what I do is I'm gonna tailor my resume and cover letter as per the job description goes, and submit my application. But apart from that, if given a chance, I would also try to do a bit more research about the organization, or um, or about that particular designation you're interested in, and probably address that in my cover letter as well, because that shows that you've done some thorough research about the organization. So once I've applied, I think I'm pretty much gonna use the other mediums as we discussed, to see if I could stand out and see if I could connect to the hiring manager, and pretty much, yeah, go from there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I agree with what Sanketh is saying. What I would add is actually before you actually start the search part of it is actually to look and do some sort of self things. Like, so the very first thing I would do is actually compile my accomplishments, compile the things that I've actually done and the things that I am proud of. Because on a resume and on a LinkedIn profile, you are going to have to market yourself. And as a recruiter, as a hiring manager, I want to know more about you. I want to know what your strengths are. I want to know what your weaknesses are, what you've accomplished. And so you have to be able to compile all those things. And, you sort of, some people might say you want to create a personal brand, because that's what's going to be also putting it on your resume and your LinkedIn profile. And then you can, like Sanketh said, see what's trending in the market, what's being opened up, what's out there for you, what are you interested in, and then move on from there. And then in terms of how you apply for a job, there's always you can always apply online, but like many of us say, 80% of the jobs out there are gained by networking. So you got to start networking. So either through groups like this, a meetup group. Meetup is great because there are other professional meetup groups. If you have noticed, like marketing analytics group. They're about to have a meeting tomorrow. There's a project management group. There is web development. There's so many professional groups out there that these are groups that you want to go out there, find out who joined them, network with those people. That's another method of networking, right? That's in person, old school way. And who knows, like you might click with someone and then you have to prepare for elevator pitch at some point. And that's, like I said, one of the first steps you do before you go on the search part. And then, throughout that search process, then you have to also be flexible. Like you can't just be, okay, I'm going for that web development job and that's it. That's the job I'm going to, and that's the one I'm shooting for. And that's fine to a certain point, but are you able to be flexible and say, I can do a little bit of development, but I also have some project man skills. So in case that they wanted a project manager who knows a bit about web development, knows a little bit about web analytics, or the job might not be completely web development, but it's like a similar role, a related role. So be open to related roles too. That's to sort of open up your range of possibilities, kind of thing. And it could be that you're targeting web development, but somewhere down the line you've done more research, more people, more information about the role, and you find out, what, that's not exactly what I thought it is, and I don't know if I really want to do this, and this other track seems a little bit more in line with what I want to do. So you have to be a little bit flexible with that as well.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, and thank you. That was great point, Cindy. And Teresa, to add to that, especially based on our conversation, and when you're looking for a career change, I think the best way, as Cindy mentioned, is these networking events, because at the end of the day, you're applying for a job where you might not have the best experience what they might be looking for, but you might have a lot of transferable skill sets. But again, meeting people, relevant people through these meetup events, or even non-relevant people who could give you those leads, is gonna open up quite a lot of doors for you. And preparing yourself on the elevator pitch is where you would sell about yourself in those 30-60 seconds. So I think these are one of the crucial steps, as Cindy highlighted, which you could build on.
Yeah. And actually, another thing that I want to point out is when we go on the job search, and I have been job search for a long time myself, is that take care of yourself as well, because I've been through long-term searches as well, and there are times where your emotions will get in the way, kind of thing, and you realize you're just completely exhausted, from the search, and it's not turning any doors in a way. And at that point, you probably like it's okay to take a break. Take a break to take care of yourself, and then once you've gotten yourself sort of calmed down and back to your center, then you sort of reassess, so where to find out what you kind of need to improve on. And another thing is, like, one of the best ways to keep your emotions up and keep yourself confident is to actually feel like you're being productive in the thing that you want to do in your career. So you can spend maybe like 50% of your time doing the job search, but the other 50% of the time is actually doing some actual, I think you said you want to do web development, so do something that's related to web development and post it online. I think all three of us here are all technical people, so you have to post it on GitHub. There's you can make your own website. You don't have to just rely on LinkedIn. You could actually create your own website, put the URL on LinkedIn, so the recruiter can go to your website and put your portfolio on your website if you want to. Sort of showcase what you can do instead of just telling people. It's like show, don't tell. So like if you have to write code, then put it on GitHub or put the script on LinkedIn or on your website, because you can't really do that on LinkedIn. But
I'd like to break in there. I have on my resume, I have links to my technical writer, and they go to the articles that I have on my LinkedIn account. And so when the recruiter or whoever clicks on, you do a control click, and it'll bring up the article from my LinkedIn account, so they can see what it is I did.
yeah, that's a good point. So I write articles on LinkedIn as well, and so you can actually put it at the top of your profile and pin it as a feature article. And so that's another option that you can do. So at the end of the day, you want to keep yourself productive in the thing that you are aiming to do. Does that help?
One thing that
Yes, that's a lot of good information.
Yeah.
one thing I've been trying to do is half the time I figure I spend about 4 hours a day looking for a job, but then the other half is continuing education, and that is I'm taking a class from Udemy. And so when they could say, okay, how have you been, keeping your skills current? And I can say, right now I'm taking a class from Udemy, but yeah, you'll probably get really burned out if you spend 8 hours a day looking for a job. So I spend 4 hours looking for a job, and then I try to spend, 2 or 3, on a class.
Yeah.
Learning something.
Yeah. So that's a question for you, Sanketh. I got it. So all these everybody values continuing education.
Mhm.
But like all these online programs like Udemy or Udacity or Coursera, how earlier, like a few years ago, it was just sort of it was kind of devalued. But how is it viewed as today? Should it be on a resume kind of thing?
Well, anything which has credibility there, yes, should be on your resume. And again, probably, you might not get a chance to even speak about it during your first round of interview with the recruiter, but potentially you could still use those talking points when you connect with the hiring manager, probably in the second round of an interview. But again, anything which adds values definitely can go on the resume, and especially with education, yes, there's no second doubt about it. Because it shows that you're trying to expand yourself or expand your knowledge in that given field. So yeah, no, it's definitely good to go on your resume, and it certainly should be on your talking points as well. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess that comes with two questions too for me. What about volunteer work? How is that viewed?
Well, again, volunteer work is also one of the key things because it shows what kind of activities you're interested in. If you are someone who potentially engages within the community and doing something within the community to to contribute your best. So yeah, those are certainly it does add extra value, but again, it solely doesn't do anything by itself. But what it adds is extra value in terms of your experience and quite a few other things what we are keenly looking at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does that answer your some of your questions, Donald? Because you talked about yesterday about volunteer work not being valued.
Yeah, volunteer work has been a really strange thing because many years ago, let's see here, they would say, it must be paid, and they've come a long way since then because one of my instructors says, they don't care if it's paid or not. And some of the stuff that I do happens to be volunteer work. However, I have it on the top of my resume because it is directly related to what I want to do. And so, and so rather than say volunteer, and by the way, I had listed that on my resume as volunteer technical writer, and I had somebody from a big company. He was reviewing my resume, and he just scratched off the word volunteer. Don't put it down because they don't care. And oh yeah, okay, fine. And so it's very highly skilled work, and it's in line doing what I want to do. And so I listed on the top of my resume. But as far as what should I say, volunteer work, that would be like well, not as related to what I would be doing, but that's a really funny thing to deal with because volunteer work used to go at the bottom of your resume, and now it's climbing to the top, I think.
Well, Donald, again, as your instructor mentioned, it's not about, at the end of the day, what we care about is that a talking point? Is that something relevant to the job which you applied for? Is that something which you personally could talk about and, bring us into a conversation which would, relate to the job which you're applying for? So if there's something which doesn't relate to the job and if you cannot talk about it, yes, it probably doesn't, it would not make any difference for a recruiter or the organization where you're applying for. But if it's a talking point for you and if you can expand on it, great. There's no second doubt. Yes, it can go on your resume stuff.
Oh yeah, right. The thing in this case is that I realized that my technical writing had to go to the top because I was doing it for a PhD, and he's a Chinese speaker, and so he's pretty good with English. But when he translates it in English, it comes out really funny, and so I have to go back and really work at having it make sense. But the point is that it is technical writing, and
Mhm.
I told my career counselor that hey, this has to go on the top, not at the end. And so that was a just kind of a really funny thing.
Well, and another key thing what one needs to keep in mind is that every recruiter, every individual, or every professional is different in their own ways. The questions what they might post at you is completely different. The way they assess you is completely different. So you cannot tailor it to every single person who you speak to, and at the end of the day, you need to speak yourself and sell yourself. That's your end goal, and that could apply to every single person who you speak to. But yeah, every single person assesses and has a different way of seeing things. So there is no right or wrong, is what I would say. Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, I want to bring up a question that probably a lot of people think about, and that's the salary question.
Mhm.
So when it comes to that word, the word salary being brought up, some recruiters bring it up front at the very beginning and ask what your desired salary is, and then versus on our side, we're advised or recommended to delay talking about salary as long as possible.
Mm.
And for you, you've been in both positions where you were the recruiter and also the job seeker as well. So how do you feel like the salary question should be dealt with? Because some job applications will ask you right there on the job application what your desired salary is.
Yeah, That's a great question, Cindy. Now, that's one of the key things as well, right? So when any given organization, they're recruiting for a certain position, they have certain budget for that given position, right? So they cannot go overboard. So let's say I'm hiring for uh, a quality assurance analyst, and the budget for that position is 80K to 100 grand. Like, that's one of our screening courses, screening question right at the scratch, because if your expectation is, let's say, more than 100K, then you wouldn't, there's no room for us to negotiate and come into a common term. So that's the reason we rule you out right in the initial stage when your expectation is way above. And again, even during your telephonic screening process, the recruiter might emphasize on what your salary expectation is, and if it is well within the budget, they are certainly, you could understand by the body language or the way they receive a reply back to you when you state your expectation. But again, as a job seeker myself, I would do a market research as well to to see what the salary range for that given position is, and probably put your expectation out there based on that, as well as if you don't have to give them a definite number saying this is what I'm expecting. You could say I'm open for negotiations, and once you hit to that last stage where it comes salary negotiation, that's when you would probably pitch in your expectations and go further from there. And you always have to keep this in mind, right? So let's say if there's a budget of 80 to 100K as I brought in, any organization would start with the minimal amount there, which is 80 grand. So they want to build from there. So if your expectation is 100, they wouldn't, there's no room for negotiation. So what they typically do is they start from that 80 range, and then there's generally a 3% negotiation done at every given stage up until there's a mutual agreement, right? So at times people just don't negotiate just on the compensation factor. They kind of blend it towards the benefits as well and see if they can come into a common agreement as well.
So in the very beginning, if at that very first screening call we are asked about our desired salary, conventionally we as job seekers are taught to say, like, I don't know what the job entails. I kind of want to know more about what this job really is before I give you an actual number.
Or you could even say, I would like to hear from you and see what the organization has to offer. So in this way you get an idea that this is what the organization's budget is, and see if it matches your expectation as well. So it probably could be a counter question back to the recruiter, where you could get more information from them, and then based on what numbers they're giving you, you could probably answer based on that, I would say.
All right, very cool.
Yep.
All right, very cool. Thank you, Sanketh. Anybody else have some last minute burning questions?
Some more
How
on,
important is?
Go ahead.
Right. Just some coaching on salary negotiations. Just because for me, like, I don't have a whole lot of corporate job experience. So for me, it's like, I don't know how to negotiate really and respectively for getting what I think I should get, I guess.
Well, Jonathan, again, you could base it on your last round salary, or you could, again, as per the market trend goes, you could see what the actual median salary paid out to that given position is, and base your expectation on that. But primarily what you got to keep in mind is if you're really interested in the position and the organization, you also have to keep in mind what their budget is. At times people have compromised because they want to genuinely work for that organization. So in that given case, I think it's always good to put your expectation, but also try to see how further you can go with the negotiation part, because at times if what the recruiter is also going to base on is, like, let's say when you apply for a job, one of the screening questions during the application process itself, it's going to ask, okay, Jonathan, what's your expectation? If you just write 55 to 60,000 K, just as an example, And at the end of the day, a recruiter is going to sell that position. If you're the final applicant, they're going to sell the position between that given range. So it's always, as I said, counter back and ask the recruiter what the budget the organization has, and then probably good to put your expectation out there.
Cool. All right. Cool.
I hope I answered your question, John.
Yeah, you definitely did.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Tertia, it sounds like you. Yeah, it looks like you have a question.
Yes, I do. I have a couple actually. The first one is for Sanketh. What is a recruiter's opinion on tech boot camps right now? How are they like tech boot camps, like a coding boot camp, for example, just technology boot camps versus either somebody who has, like a computer science degree or somebody who's self-taught? How are they looked at? Is there a stigma that comes with it, or?
Oh, that's a great question. And again, it's especially with the recruiter, they solely don't make a decision based on the credentials what you carry, especially if it's from a university or if you've done something online. At times, let me get this question straight. So Teresa, you want to know if your university degree has high value over an online course or something as such, right?
Yes, especially these new school technology boot camps out there where, you do 3 months to 6 months of intensive immersive study, and then you get equivalent to a college degree, especially in the technology realm.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Now, you got to look through the description as well. So at times, when the position is advertised, right? So the position, it literally says in the description, it says you must have, let's say, 8 years of experience or an equivalent of so and so. So when it says so, it means that the organization is open to any given credentials you have through any given platforms as well. So it doesn't hold so much of weightage. But if they're so very specific in the job description, saying that your credentials has to be a university or it has to be from a certain college, then yes, then a recruiter would abide by that. But if it says if they're looking for a blended experience and way based on what would be most suitable, then they would go the other way.
I'd like to add something in there. I was listening to, let me see here, a hiring manager, and he had a series of free videos, and he brought up that same point. And in my day, you had to have a 4-year degree, etc. But it's not so much true anymore, because he said that they looked through IBM's job listing, and 43% did not require that. And I've noticed that in a lot of the job listings, they just said, either have a 2-year degree and then 2 years of experience, or but they don't require any specific degree. A lot of times, they just want you to have a 4-year degree in something that's technology. But it's becoming it's becoming less. It's not so much that way anymore. So that's a really good sign, because too many people are going into 4-year programs and going into thousands and thousands of dollars of debt, and when they come out at the end, it's they can't find a job. And so I think a lot of these companies are de-emphasizing a 4-year degree. And I've heard about people who have taken boot camps, coding boot camps, and they did fine. So there's some encouragement for you that coding boot camps are okay.
Absolutely, that's well said, Donald. Again, as Donald mentioned, most of the organizations nowadays are pretty much open-minded in terms of their requirements or their expectations. So you got to watch out for the language, what they use when they write the job descriptions, and that probably is what they're going to use as a tool to assess one's credentials. But majority of it is, an equivalency of experience or the credentials what you carry. So, yeah.
All right.
Thank you for
There was
that.
go ahead.
Sorry, the other question I had was I was going to ask for both of you and anyone else to give some tips on networking, especially right now where majority of everything is online, and also for introverts.
I
Cindy?
mean, like I said, you're in the right place, right? It's meetup groups. You know, yeah, the search for meetup groups around, and it's not. You don't have to search for local groups either. You can search for groups everywhere, because it's now everything is online. I have networked with not just people in the entire United States. I've networked with people in the entire world. You know, and the people that I network is are more entrepreneur type people right now. But before that, I was, like I said, I was networking with people who worked in my industry or industries that I was interested in getting into. Another way to, and this one I found out about 2 weeks ago. This is a really good networking system, and so far, I mean, I started it 2 weeks ago, and I've met 4 people so far. It's called lunchclub.ai. So what you do is then you register for, you sign up for it, and you give it 2 time slots within the week that you are available to talk to someone, to meet with someone. And then and it will ask you, what do you want to talk about? What are you interested in? You know, what categories you want to get into? And then the system itself will automatically or will match you up with someone, some random person, that that is also in line with your interests. So, like, for example, I met with someone from San Francisco who started a company that works with a venture capitalist client, who taken capitalists as clients. And you know, she is a NLP, so another data science related area kind of thing, and she just started a company. And she's French, so she's French, living in the San Francisco area, and the CEO of her own startup company. Another person I met is right here in Seattle, and he came from also a technical world. Well, he did a little bit of he was in the film industry for a little bit before he went into started doing technical startup, and then now he's like a real estate broker kind of thing. And I'm scheduled to meet some sort of martial artists on Friday kind of thing. So you guys, like, you meet with like just random people kind of thing, but it's in line with the interests that you've indicated on the website. And those are one-on-one meetings, and that you schedule a maximum of 2 meetings. So every week you'll meet with 2 different people, and then, you know, we link up on LinkedIn, and then of course after that it's on you to follow up with those people. Another thing is also look into organizations. So things like Lean In. You know, that Lean In is a women's group. There's also Elevate Network. It's another women's organization. There's also you know, if you're interested in supply chain, for example, there's what is it called? Informs. That's specifically for supply chain people. If you're into marketing, there's the American what's it called? American Marketing Association or something. AMA. So there are plenty of opportunities to network. So like I said, meetup groups, national organizations, local organizations, Toastmasters if you want to improve on your public speaking.
Yeah.
And then of course there's programs like Lunch Club. There's also some local conferences if you can get into those kind of things. There's plenty of networking opportunities. As far as being an introvert, well, guess what? You have to do it. I'm an introvert myself. I am a very introverted person. In fact, there are times in the beginning where I had to force myself to go to networking events, and I would go, and there'll be times I just I would stick there, and I would stand there for like an hour. I give myself an hour, and if I don't meet anybody within an hour, okay, fine, I'll leave, kind of thing. But I say it's a minimum of an hour. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to try to find someone. That's the start off with. And the next stage, stage 2 would be you stay there for an hour or more if you want, and you give yourself a goal. I am going to hand out 3 business cards today. I'm going to go talk to 3 different people today, no matter what. I'm just going to go and talk with 3 people. And then once you talk with 3 people, you're gone. Like I'm home, kind of thing. And as the more comfortable you get with networking, the more that number will get. Next time you go, maybe 5 people, then 7 people, then 10 people, and so on and so forth. And after a while, you'll get used to it. Believe me. And then
I'd like to add something there.
Go ahead.
As far as networking, there are, or even conversation or going to parties, there's a lot of good materials, books and tapes on how to do that, especially for people that are very quiet and shy. This is this is a very common phenomenon, and I went through a lot of them and studied them, and and then I developed my own style. One of my favorites was what is it? You act like Columbo, Peter Falk, because he would come into a room and kind of bang and bumble around, and it's the and that's a really good way to make an entrance rather than standing in the corner, just kind of wander around the room and kind of accidentally bump into people. And so, but there are a lot of very good books and tapes on how to do that, and they're written for people that are very quiet.
Yeah. And I not forget to mention this third method. It's probably the most very important in these days. The method is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a networking platform, social media networking platform. What you want to do is you find out the people that you're interested in and try to contact those people. And you do not have to have a premium account to contact them. Then another way to work that around is actually join the groups that they're in and contact them as group members, and that becomes free. It's free to contact people as a group member.
I didn't know that.
Consider as in-mail. So because in-mail you have to pay for it, but you can contact someone for free as a group member. But you have to be in the same group. So that's why I recommend people, when they have a LinkedIn profile, is to look at the groups that are available, the LinkedIn groups, and join them. Because there's a whole lot of networking that could be done, and join the groups that you want to get into. So if you are into consumer goods, consumer packaged goods, for example, then join a consumer packaged goods group and see if you can network with any of the group members there. And what you want to go in with the mindset is to not say that you're desperate for a job. What you want to do is that you want to be curious about the person and think of something that you can offer to the person. Think of it as a you have something to give rather than you want to get something. And that's a longer conversation. But that's how you want to be able to sort of get on someone's rapport with you rather than like, okay, this person's is desperate for a job and you're just sort of, they'll back off a little bit when that happens. Kind of thing. So, I mean, Sanketh, does that seem like?
Yeah, no, that's pretty much. I think the options what you laid out there is the best way. Especially when you're looking for job, I pretty much use the same different platforms to connect with people. At times when you're looking for a job, yes, desperateness comes out, but that's okay. But outselling yourself, just make at times what at least what helped me is when I spoke to people. They were not the decision makers. They were just random people within the industry who I spoke to, who gave me quite a lot of leads which I could build on. So at times, having that mindset that you're, as Cindy mentioned, at the end of the day, if you're speaking to 3 people, um, that's good. And tomorrow you could go up and speak to 5 more people or 7 more people, especially for someone who who consider themselves as introvert, and myself. That is what I ended up doing. I wanted to meet 3 new people every single day, and then I started building on that and started improvising on it, which opened quite a lot of doors for me. So I think that's a great way to go, as per Cindy and Donald's suggestion. That
All right, very cool. Does that help, Teresa?
Very helpful. Do you go in with the mindset of, or with a goal, should I say, or do you say I'm gonna join this one or reach out to this person and see what I can learn out of it versus I'm gonna go in to get this? Which one of the two? Like, what is the best approach?
I would say go in with the mindset of you're learning something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because when
And
you
then,
go in the mindset of you want to get something, then it's like you asking me for money, and it's like I'm not gonna give you any money because I don't know you.
Yeah.
Right.
right.
Right. So you want to go in the mindset of you being curious about the person. So if you want to go into the meeting with the goal would be, oh, I know this person's going to be at this event. I want to walk up to this person and learn more about this person. I want to learn about how he got to where he is. I want to know why he was interested in what he does. How can I do his job in the future? Like how do I take his job, kind of thing.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Kind
Now,
of thing. Yeah.
what about networking with people like on LinkedIn, for example, just to be specific, people who are already in your network, but you haven't talked to them in so long? How do you revive those relationships?
I just recently today just contacted someone I haven't spoke to in 7 years, I think. I see her all the time on LinkedIn because she does some posts and stuff. And I just say like, hey Gina, like it's been so long. You want to catch up? I just say, oh, you want to catch up, and sometimes I respond to you, and sometimes they don't. But I have done that multiple times, and a lot of times I was like, hey, Cindy, yeah, we haven't spoken in a long time. Like yeah, I'd be open to coffee or talking on Zoom. I love that. Kind of thing. So, like any other kind of networking or connecting with people, they have the choice of responding to you, and sometimes they don't. And you just have to accept how the system works, and you will find that person who's like still wants to talk to you. which has happened to me quite a few times. So
what about the ones who maybe you don't even remember how you connected or why? Because they're not maybe a personal connection or personal friend, but they've been in your LinkedIn from before.
Yeah, I have plenty of those, and I would approach them like if you don't you don't remember them, then it's likely that person doesn't remember you either. So it's almost like you are networking with a brand new person, I would think. And so you want to like basically reintroduce yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's how I would approach it. Or the other way you could do it is that if the person has been very active online, like active on social media, then you can like follow the person. So the person has done a bunch of postings or written a bunch of articles, like blog articles. So there's a way to follow what his activities are. And you can say, "Hey, Bob, like we haven't talked in a while, but I saw you wrote this article, and I would really love to discuss what's happening here. Like, I would really love to know your point of view, and I would love to give you mine and see if we can help each other or something along those lines, or kind of thing."
Okay, that's some good tips.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I just wanted to add to that, Teresa. Yeah, that's finding common, interest, or by the research what you've done from that person and what they've been working on is a great way to kickstart a conversation. But again, even at times, you might have been approached by recruiters as well. So recruiters also typically do this. They reach out to applicants, especially passive applicants at times, when they know that there's scarcity in that given position or talent pool. What they typically tend to do is they reach out to passive applicants and do a bit of background research about what they've been doing and what they've been constantly active in. And that's how they connect with passive applicants as well and start up a conversation. So, sometimes you might get some emails to recruiters as well. So just keep an eye out.
All right, very cool. Well, it's 8:30. It's probably like way past our time. But
Sorry.
first of all, I want to thank Sanketh for taking this and giving us some really, really good recommendations and advice and finding us. Again, congrats to your new role, kind of thing. And I hope everybody's got the information that they want. If you have more questions, you're welcome to email me. And Sanketh, is that for you too? I mean, I could share your email address or.
Absolutely, and my LinkedIn as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah,
Oh,
go
okay,
ahead
yeah.
and connect with us on LinkedIn. This meeting is recorded, so I will send out the recording once it's completely compiled on the computer. And so you guys can rewatch it if you like.
Sanketh, can you put your LinkedIn address in the chat?
I can link you on there on LinkedIn, Donald. So I'll just forward you a link through LinkedIn. So
all right.
So I think that's easier.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So I hope everybody have a good night, and good luck to everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you, thanks, Cindy. Thanks, Sanketh.
No
Good luck,
problem.
good luck,
Thanks
everyone.
for coming, Sanketh.
Yeah. Thank you, Don. Good to meet you, Teresa, and good to meet you, Jonathan, as well, and Cindy. All
right.
All right, take
Good
care.
night, everybody.
Ciao.
Bye. Good night, everybody.
Good night.